I can't help but think every time November comes around of what happened in my life on November the 18th in 1999. That's 25 years ago this year. It was the first time that I had a real encounter with tragic death. I had just come back home from shopping with my aunt to make Thanksgiving baskets for our parish. And after she dropped me off, she went back home, she got a phone call, and then she called us with the news that our newly ordained parish priest, the parochial vicar, Father Peter Conroy, who was all of 39 years old and less than 6 months ordained, had just passed away that morning. And I was in utter disbelief, and I remember right then and there bursting into tears. I couldn't help myself. I was only 12 years old at the time. But Father Conroy, although he'd only been with us for a short period since that summer, he had already made a huge impression on all of us, especially on the altar servers. You know, he was the first priest that I ever saw wear a cassock and a biretta. He was the first priest who I ever saw wear Roman vestments. You know, the black vestment that I wore today, he had them in all the colors. And he would, in the sacristy, show us what each of them were. And we just thought it was absolutely amazing, the time and attention that he gave to us. He's the one that helped me to refine some of my altar serving skills, and he even taught me some of my prayers in Latin. He was a very athletic man, too, very tall and handsome, very in shape, and he would play baseball with us behind the field and behind the church in the field. So it made no sense to me how this man could be dead. It didn't make any sense, and it didn't seem fair. And the circumstances were even harder to accept because there was no violence, there was no foul play, no human beings got messed up in things. He went to bed the night before with a cold, and he never woke up. When he didn't show up for Mass the next morning, they found him in his bed. They thought he was sleeping, and when they went to rouse him, there was no answer. Now, this stung me very deeply, because not only did I lose a role model, but in those years, I was already convinced of my vocation to the priesthood. And Father Conroy had already started to nurture and foster that within me. And in a real way, I identified myself with him, which meant that if he could die, so could I. So will I. It was the first time that ever hit me. Now, a few days later, right before Thanksgiving, was his funeral. And I've never seen the church as full as it was that day. There were visitation hours in the church before the funeral mass, and there was a line on side of either his casket reaching out for what seemed like miles. His casket was in the center of the church, just like this one is, and people would come on either side. There was a full lid that was removed from the top of his casket, and so you could see him laying out completely. And you could access him on both sides. And I remember this was an overwhelming experience for me. I'd never seen anything like this. I remember looking over, too, at the front pew where his mother and father were. And his mother was just sobbing uncontrollably. I didn't know what to make of this. This was the first time that I had ever experienced anything like this. And I saw all of the beautiful people from our parish and neighboring parishes and all around coming up and touching him. And everybody was crying. I didn't know what to do with this as a 12-year-old. When it was my turn, when I got up to the coffin, there he was. He was wearing the vestments that he was just wearing at Mass. And I remember thinking, this seems surreal. This does not feel like it's actually happening. And I watched everybody else touch him, and so I did too. And that was the first time that I'd ever touched a dead body, and it really struck me. I pulled my hand back in absolute fear from the cold. I remember looking at him going, this isn't him. This does not look like him at all. What is going on? And then I remember going back to my pew, just feeling confused and sad and overwhelmed and everything in between. As they put the top of the casket on him in order to get ready for the funeral mass, I watched our pastor, Father Claude Albert, completely break down into tears. He had been working with this new priest. They had been planning what the future of the parish was going to be like, and I watched Father Albert's dreams and his own sadness just get poured out in devastation in front of me. We had our bishop and our auxiliary bishop there on that day, and both of them were lost in tears. Everyone around me was devastated, and I was too. But I didn't know what any of it meant. Days and weeks would come and pass, and there was like this macabre, somber, dark cloud over our whole parish. It was such a sad Advent that year. And Christmas was not the same. This should have been his first Christmas as a priest. And he didn't get to celebrate his first Christmas Mass, his first midnight Mass. And we had to celebrate without him. And over time, things got better for us. We heal. Human beings are resilient, but we don't forget. I never really recovered from this. I can replay all of the details in my brain as if it happened just yesterday. Every sorrowful, frightening detail of this whole tragic ordeal. My friends, my guess is that if you have lost someone close to you in this life, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's not just sadness. It's confusion. It's fear. It's worry. It's panic. It's terror. It's all of this. Death does this to us. And we, doesn't matter how old we get, we don't know what to do with it. My first time experiencing this as a 12-year-old, now having done hundreds, thousands of funerals, I still don't know what to do with it. And my friends, that's what this day is all about. This All Souls Day. The church knows that we need something to do with these memories. The sorrowful ones, the joyful ones, and everything in between. And so we gather on this one day of the year, this All Souls Day, the beginning of the month of November, and we celebrate this Mass for all the faithful departed. And we see them all there at that catafalque today. All of our loved ones, all of our friends, even our enemies. We see them all there just as surely as I saw Father Conroy there 25 years ago. And in doing this and encountering this dark, macabre, somber, terrifying, awful reality, which we can do nothing about, we have no power over, and in fact, every single one of us is going to end up there ourselves sooner or later. We don't know what to do other than to give it all to Christ. There is no medication that they've figured out that can make us live longer. Doesn't matter how healthy you are or how unhealthy you are, we're all going there. What other answer is there than Jesus Christ? I have found none. No human being has found any. For he is the only one who went through this terrible ordeal himself, causing mass suffering among his friends and loved ones, dying the most brutal, awful of deaths. He is the only one to go through all of it. and to rise. And that transformed his friends and loved ones. It transformed the people who in this life called him Lord. It assured them and gave them strength. It didn't take away the experience of death, but it transformed it. And it gave them something crucial, what we call hope. Hope has its meaning because of the suffering that we experience in this life. When there is no more suffering, there will be no more hope, for everything will be fulfilled. That's why charity is the only thing that exists in the kingdom of heaven. No more faith, no more hope. Those will pass away. Only charity, only love. But in the meantime, where there is tragedy, where there is death, there can be hope. Hope that this is not everything that there is. Hope that the one who endured death has thrown open the insurmountable, unpenetrable door that has separated the dead from the living, that he has thrown that open and has ushered all of us into it. It gives me hope that even though 25 years ago I looked into the face of tragedy, that is not what God sees. And that though I will have to go through this myself one day, maybe tomorrow, maybe 50 years from now, but one day I will go through it. And I cannot go through it without hope. That's what this All Souls Day is all about. We don't dress this up to make it fanciful and wonderful. We encounter the starkness of death as it is. Throughout this whole Requiem Mass, death is cast as the antagonist. Death is the one who is coming to get us. The heaviness, the drabness, the darkness, it's all here. Death has come, and it has snatched away the people that we have loved the most in this life. And yet in the midst of all of this, Christ, the protagonist, is working on our behalf, giving of himself, laying down his life, and rising from the dead. And you and I have just tasted of the sacrament where he makes this reality present in our souls. What else can we have now other than hope? How can we leave this church today not having hope for ourselves and for our loved ones? We don't leave here gloomy and sad, although there is probably some of that which will remain, which will always remain. But we leave here with hope, with the strength renewed to keep going and to prepare for that day. We know neither the day nor the hour when death will come for us, but to hope at that hour that Christ will be there with us and that he will lead us through what would otherwise be the end unto eternal life. These sad memories that we have, as awful as they are, as unsettled as my memories of Father Conroy's funeral and death make me, I am so glad for them. You know why? Because it prompts me, even to this day, 25 years ago, to pray for him. Human beings are not meant to forget. Human beings are not meant to let go of our dead. We are meant to remember, and we are meant to pray. We are meant to hope for them, specifically. How do we do this as Catholics? There are any number of different ways. If you grab a bulletin on your way out of Mass today, I've got several different ways that you can bring about this renewed sense in your life, your spiritual life, of how to relate to and to pray for those who have gone before us. But we cannot try to heal ourselves into psychological peace. We cannot try to erase these memories from our minds. We must let Christ transform them. And that is what we do. We offer up our sadness, we offer up our prayers, we offer up our hope, we offer it all up to Christ, and we say with him, they are yours, and you are mine. And he tells us that whoever believes in him, even should he die, will live forever. In just a moment, we will go down to this catafalque, which is nothing more than wood, just like any other coffin that is made. There is no one in this coffin because all of the dead are in there, along with all of us who will one day die. And we surround them with our prayers, our love, and our hope. We will envelop them sacramentally with the grace and power of the Christ who has destroyed death and robbed it of its sting. Doesn't mean that we don't feel it. It doesn't mean that we don't hurt. What it means is that we get to hope. I love the poem that's written by Alexander Pope, the great Catholic poet. I read it every year on All Souls Day, and I will read it for you today. It's entitled, "The Dying Christian to His Soul." Vital spark of heavenly flame, quit, oh quit, this mortal frame, trembling, hoping, lingering, flying. Oh, the pain, the bliss of dying. Cease, fond nature, cease thy strife, and let me languish into life. Hark, they whisper, angels say, sister spirit, come away. What is this absorbs me quite, steals my senses, shuts my sight, drowns my spirit, draws my breath? Tell me, my soul, can this be death? The world recedes, it disappears. Heaven opens on my eyes, my ears. With sounds seraphic ring, lend your wings, I mount, I fly. O grave, where is thy victory? O death, where is thy sting?